Good evening and welcome to another episode of Whole Child Wednesday. We're so excited to have you all joining us again. To you guys that are new to Whole Child Wednesday, this is a weekly show that the district hosts to engage families and build capacity around how they can support the whole child. Today is a special show as September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. So we are joined here by some special guests. In a second, they'll have a moment to introduce themselves. If you can, please share this video with your friends and followers. We want them to be aware of the tips and resources that we're offering here today. John, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Janelle. My name is John, and I work in the Social and Emotional Learning Department at Hamilton County Schools. And we're excited to have Rachel Geringer with us today from the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network. She is the Southeast Regional Director. So Rachel, you just want to introduce yourself and kind of maybe your background a little?
Yeah, so I have a master's degree in public health and mainly focus on mental health. I've been involved with a number of different mental health focused organizations in Tennessee and in other states as well before I moved to Tennessee. So I'm currently at the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network, and I'm the Southeast Regional Director, which means I am over 10 counties in Southeast Tennessee. My position is based in Chattanooga.
Great, thanks. And the Hamilton County Schools has been participating in the Children's Cabinet and the Social Emotional Learning and Mental Health Working Group. And Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network is a part of that, which is how we kind of became familiar with each other's work and wanted to highlight your work. So thinking about from a family perspective, what are some of the things they need to be aware of? You know, how prevalent is suicide and how much of a problem is it with our youth?
So overall, suicide is the 9th leading cause of death in Tennessee for all age ranges, and it is something that affects every single age. Specifically for our youth, it is the 3rd leading cause of death for youth ages 10 to 19. And so it is something that unfortunately does affect our youth. And it also, I want to highlight that it is something that affects even youth at an elementary age. So at all age levels, elementary, middle school, and high school, youth can have suicidal thoughts. They can feel hopeless to a point where they are having these thoughts. And so it's really up to us as families, as community members, as educators. Everyone needs to know the warning signs, to know how to intervene, and to know what the resources are.
Yeah, that's always tough to think about elementary age children and having to be aware of and pay attention to this. When you said warning signs, being aware of and watching for the warning signs, could you talk a little bit about what those are in different ages?
Yeah, so warning signs are things that we are looking out for that are going to tell us that this person may be thinking, or this child may be thinking of taking their own life. So the warning signs are really a sign that we need to have a conversation with that child about what's going on, what they're thinking, what they're feeling. And this could come out, these warning signs could come out in various ways. So they could be a child saying something directly, a child, expressing that they feel hopeless, or, that they don't feel like there's any way out for whatever they're dealing with. It could be, a change in behavior, a drastic change in behavior. So it could be a kid who is normally, very bubbly and social, and all of a sudden they don't want to hang out with their friends anymore, or they don't want to do things that interest them. So, look out for what kids are saying, how they're acting, appetite, sleep, those different things. Basically, any big drastic behavior change can show us that something might not be right with this child. And it might not necessarily mean that they are thinking of suicide, but it's really an invitation to have that conversation.
So watching for changes, and I know that right now we're all kind of living different lives than we did before all of this. So is there anything that's kind of specific to our current environment, and we're not leaving the house as often, we're not engaging in social activities as often? Are there any special warning signs, or have you seen an elevation in suicidal ideation in youth? I'm just wondering, kind of pandemic specific, like is it an extra problem, and are there specific ways to watch out for
So it's important to note that people are reacting to this differently, right? People may have different feelings associated with this pandemic and what's going on. And so the warning signs are really going to depend on that person and what is the norm for them. So I would just say, if a child is not connecting at all with their friends, I know it's kind of different right now, but there's still some ways and creative ways that we connect with one another. And we can still do the activities that we want to do, maybe not to the same extent, and might have to get a little bit creative. But really it's going to depend on that person. So I would say, a child who is not wanting to connect with their friends, is having a lot of maybe fear and anxiety about going to school. That is something that we might be seeing more of. That might be a little bit more prevalent right now. So those are things that, we want to let children know that it's okay that they're feeling these different ways. It's okay that they're feeling the way that they are in response to everything going on. And also just normal life things, normal life things aren't stopping right now because there's a pandemic. So we have, a pandemic on top of normal life things. So it's really just letting that child know that the way that they feel is okay, and you're willing to be there to talk to them about it, and you care for them, and you want to work towards a way for them to feel better.
I think that's good advice. I know that parents sometimes can have problems broaching those topics. I mean, it's sensitive. Sometimes you think, well, the school counselor or someone else will keep an eye out and help to support me. But if I'm at home with my student and I'm starting to see some warning signs, how do I bring that topic up without, it feeling like an attack to them or hurting their feelings in any way?
Yeah, so that is a question we get a lot, and a lot of the work that we do at Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network really focuses on that barrier. So people generally feel kind of uncomfortable talking about suicide, and talking about mental health in general, but especially suicide. And I'm glad that you acknowledged the fact that, because of the pandemic and everything going on, parents might be in more of a role to intervene. We have students who are learning completely virtually, and they don't have that normal interaction that they might have had with the school counselor or teacher. So it's really important that parents kind of watch out for those warning signs we discussed, but really coming and approaching this conversation in a way that is not judgmental, really giving that child a space to share how they're really feeling. You can ask the child, you can say, this is what I'm noticing in you, right? You can start off with that. This is really different for you. You usually want to talk to your friends. You're usually, wanting to play soccer outside or whatever. You're not doing that anymore. So what's going on? So you can start the conversation with that. What's going on? What are you feeling? And really, the important thing is to be in a non-judgmental space. So, then you start that conversation with them, and then you can ask questions if you feel like it's going to this point. Do you feel hopeless? Do you feel like there's no way out? Do you feel like there's no end to whatever you're going through? And that can be, those can be some ways to get to then this question of, are you thinking about suicide? And you want to make sure that you ask that question. And so I think that approaching it from a genuine place and a compassionate place and a place of giving that child your time and giving them your attention, we can be really bad at that, right? We're doing 1,000 things, and we're trying to, make sure the house is clean, and we're good with work, and, dinner's made, and all these different things, and we're on our phones. Give that child your attention, and give them that space to really talk about what's going on and check in on them. Maybe, every day when they come home from school, you kind of check in on their mental health and make time and make that conversation important.
That's great. So imagining that I do have a student I'm worried about, and I start that conversation, and when I ask them if they're thinking about suicide, the answer is yes. I know that I would feel overwhelmed. I wouldn't know what my next step is. So what is there help for me at that point? How do I proceed? Because that could be a dangerous situation.
Yeah, so that is obviously a situation where if you don't do something, something bad might happen. So you really want to make sure that you're treating it seriously. You do not want to leave that child alone. You want to make sure that you're responding to it immediately. So across the state of Tennessee, we have mobile crisis services. And so in Southeast Tennessee, we have youth-specific mobile crisis services. And so that is through Youth Villages. And I can actually read out the number to Youth Villages Mobile Crisis. It's 1-866-791-9225. So that is a really great resource, and that is available 24/7 because we know that sometimes these crises might happen in the middle of the night, and parents need resources at any hour. So they can call Youth Villages Mobile Crisis. They can say, this is what is going on with my kid. And they told me, that they're thinking of suicide. And Youth Villages Mobile Crisis will do an assessment. They'll do a pretty lengthy assessment, figure out what is going on with that child that is kind of precipitating these thoughts. And then they'll really come up with a plan to address, what is leading to these thoughts of suicide. And that might include, treatment or safety planning, and they'll be able to connect that family to resources.
That's great, and we'll put that number on the bottom of the screen. We'll also include the HCS hotline. If you are starting the conversations, it's not at a crisis level, but you're having trouble connecting to your school counselor or your school social worker for your school, you can call our HCS hotline and we can help to get you connected to that school. But like Rachel said, if it is a crisis, there's someone in danger, you want to use that crisis number. So Rachel, if someone's preparing for a conversation with a student or just wants to get more facts and information, do you have that kind of thing on your website?
Yeah, we have a lot of information on our website, which is tspn.org. We have information about the warning signs, about risk factors, about protective factors, which are things that can protect people from suicide and lower their suicide risk. So things that we can do as a community and as individuals to strengthen ourselves from suicide, really. And we also have information on there about all the trainings that we offer and all of the work that we do at Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network. We are a statewide organization, and we are working to implement the National Strategy for Suicide Prevention in the state of Tennessee. So we work very closely with a lot of different community partners on a lot of different efforts. So all of that is available on our website if you want to learn more about suicide prevention and specifically what we do.
Great. So thanks again to the Southeast Regional Director for the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network, Rachel. And I think it's really important at this time. There's a lot of extra stress and there's a lot of disconnect from caring adults. So this is well placed, and it just happens to be Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. So thanks for joining us. And Janelle has a couple of announcements for us.
Yeah, thank you again, Rachel. Such an important topic, a serious topic, and I think that the tips and resources that you shared here, our families will find them useful. Just a couple of reminders. We do have the district's Family Resource Center available. We also have our Parent University dashboard, and here we have linked to the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network and the resources that Rachel talked about. Also, if you want to check out some of the resources that we have available on the district website, you can do that as well at hcde.org/Family Resource Center. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we hope you enjoyed the show, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Talk soon.
Thank you.